Welcome to the Pinter Beer Chef, a channel dedicated to the Pinter 3. Here you'll learn everything you need to know to brew like a pro. Okay, today is brew day. We are going to be doing an all grain 10 pint kit. This has been reconfigured, if you like, for the Pinter, the actual, just the ingredients, the measurements and the weights of the ingredients. I'm going for 9 litres of water. I've got two 5-litre bottles over there. I've taken 1 litre out of one of them and just put it in a different bottle. So I'll be starting with 9 litre. That's the total that we'll be using for today. The recipe that I've gone for is basically a chocolate stout, a mixture of 5 or 6 different malted grains. This is what I would say is, if we wait till the taste testing on this, if it's any good, if I like it, and it's one to be recommended, then I'll give you the details of like the recipe and put it up on the taste test. But for now, don't rush out and buy anything, just in case it doesn't turn out like I expect it to. Like I say, I've changed the measurements on this to make it the 10 pints. So we'll see. It should be fine, but we'll wait for that day. It's good timing really, because the malt miller where I buy these grains from have today released a video where they put a all grain kit. They do 5 litre. They do, I think there's 9 in the range of small batch 5 litre recipes, which are brilliant for the pinter, for a starting point for the pinter. That's all you need. So I definitely recommend that you go and check out them and see their new video where they put it's not in extensive detail, but where they put a 5 litre all batch kit, like I'm doing today, basically, in through a Pinter 3. And you see that they've got some good ideas as well about the types of yeast that you might use. Next summer, these thermo-resistant yeasts would be really interesting to try. So there's some great stuff over there. I use these guys for the all grain kits all the time. It's the only company I use, so definitely recommend them. Investigate that, look into it. I think you'll find it interesting. So the equipment that I'm going to be using today. Oh, actually, just one thing I'd point out. Always bear in mind that people quite readily interchange 5 litre 10 pints, but always remember that 5 litres, a 5 litre batch kit is not 10 pints. 5 litres is 8.8 pints. Drop off what you're going to lose in your docking station, you got 8 pints. So a 5 litre kit is going to produce 8 pints of drinkable beer at your pinter. So always remember that if you're looking at price points and you're comparing price for price, as in price per pint, a lot of people do just generalize, 5 litres is 10 pints, but it's not actually. So keep your eye on that. I'm not saying that you'd want to scale these kits up. That's what I've tried to do with this. Just basically just take a 5 litre small batch and scale it up to 10 pints. I'm not saying you'd want to bother doing that. You can keep it at the 5 litres in your pinter, no problem at all. But if you do that, you'll have to adjust on the water that we're using today as well. I'm starting, we're going with 9 litres today. If you run a 5 litre kit, then perhaps start with 8 litres, drop 1 litre at the beginning. So that's that on that. So basically the equipment that I'm going to be using is a 15 litre pot, if you like. I bought this new. I used to use one that was 11 litres, but it was a bit messy because I couldn't get all the water in one go. So I had to sort of like add more water while it was boiling and stuff. And it was problematic, really. So what I've kind of devised today is a new strategy for all grain brewing to try and make it so easy and so accessible to pinter users, that they'll be tempted to give it a try. Now, one thing I would point out, and the malt miller themselves say this in their video, that the Pinter beer packs are really, the top of the range as far as extract kits go. They are top of the range. They're very good quality, very good beer kits, and that, to this day, and moving forward, the Pinter fresh press kits will be my mainstay of brewing in the Pinter. I look at the other, splitting the 40 pint packs, looking at some of the other extract kits and stuff. It's fascinating to me to see the comparison, to see the value, to see the price points. But I think Pinter is ahead of the game on the small batch kits for the Pinter. Of course, it's Pinter specific. You've got everything in the box, so all credit to them for that. As far as the all grain goes, I mean, I only do this probably once a month. It's just a little extra treat to try something exceptional, to try something extraordinary. It would never replace, the regular brewing. I've got 4 Pinters. I have 3 of them on the go all the time. The day will never come when all of them are all grain kits, and I'm doing this because it's much more time intensive than what the Pinter fresh presses are. So these things, they are good, they are interesting. To have more options is fantastic. I think it's a positive thing for the Pinter. You see the Mangrove Jacks 10 pints kits that have come out with the 3 varieties. You've got the Georges, the 5 litre small batch. You've got now the Malt Miller with a selection of 5 litre all grain kits. I mean, this is fantastic for Pinter brewers because it gives us open access to great variation. And we've got the solid foundation behind us of the regularity of subscribing to the Pinter fresh presses and getting that on tap as well, delivered through your door. So I mean, it's just, we've got the best of all worlds at the minute, and I hope that there's a momentum building for small batch brewing. Because I love it. I think it's something that's gonna really shine in the future. If it's not already there, it might be. We've not always got accessibility to the overall market. It might already be, totally thriving as an alternative to the traditional type 23 litre 40 pint kits. So anyway, I've upgraded to this 15 litre pot, to make it to make this smooth as possible. I use this. You already know this if you watch my videos, but I use this to heat up the jars when I'm doing the vacuum sealed jars and stuff, and I use this for vacuum sealing them. But I use this as well when I'm doing the all grain kit, because when I put this in, when it's actually in the mash and you're soaking the grains, with that wire rack at the bottom, it means that the grains and my bag are not sitting right on the bottom of the pan. So that means that when I need to just put the heat on and touch the heat back up, I don't need to lift my bag out or agitate the water. Traditionally, that's what I would have done. When the temperature drops, you'll understand this more as I go through this. But when the temperature dropped before, when the actual grains were, if you like, soaking in the water, if I wanted to reheat, then I had to lift the bag up and sort of like move it so they didn't stick to the bottom of the pan and get burnt under the direct heat. So putting the wire rack in there means that it's sitting probably a good inch off the bottom of the pan, which means I don't have to worry. I can put the gas on for a few minutes, reheat it without any concern whatsoever. So we've got the pot, we've got the wire rack, obviously the all grain kit, the bag. This is obviously traditionally brewing the bag. This bag I ordered from Amazon. It was way too big. It was like this. It was like a sack. So it wasn't a great fit. But to be honest, I just cut it off. I just chopped it off with a pair of scissors. It's a bit rough and ready, but it's fine now. It serves me well. You might be able to find a better fit, but I just found a pack on Amazon where it was one really big one and one smaller for hops and stuff, and I just bought that and chopped it down. I've just got 4 metal pegs, if you like, which I'll be clipping that on there just to hold that in place. And then a clip-on thermometer, which I'll pop on the side, and a plastic spoon to stir it. So that's the kit. There's not too much kit. I think we're gonna get through this pain-free today. I think it's going to go pretty well, and I think it's going to. I hope that you'll be surprised actually how simple it is. So I'll just give you an idea of what I'm going to do, and then I'll press on and do it. I'm going to put 1 litre of my water from the containers there. There's 9 litres left. Of course, I've already removed 1, so I'll be using a total volume of water of 9 litres. I'm going to put 1 in the kettle, which I will warm up later on. I'll make it hot but not boiling, and that's when we take the grains out. I'll rinse the grains down just with that 1 litre, so that'll be the job done. And then the rest is going to go all in the pan. I'm going to preheat this to 65 degrees C. I'm going to weigh out here's the yeast. We'll only be using half a packet of yeast. It's 11 gram pack, So we'll only we'll split that in 2 to 5.5 grams, which should do the job, and then we'll save that other 5.5 for another brew another day. And the hops, there's 11 grams of hops here. We'll be putting them in 2 batches. We'll be going 4 grams in at one point, and then the rest in later. So what I'll do is I will just quickly get all this sorted, get the hops weighed out, and then I'll pop the camera back on, and then we'll press on to the next step from there. So I'll see you in 2 secs. Okay, the temperature is now just approaching 70 degrees C. Our target temperature is 65, but just before we put the grains in, we'll overshoot to 70, because when we put the grain pack in, it's going to drive the temperature back down. In the meantime, while I've been waiting for this to heat up, of course, the bag is in now. I've clipped it on. Obviously, the thermometer's there. It's ready for the grains to be poured in. I've got the hops. I've split them out into a weight of, there was 11 grams hops total. I've got a 7 gram and a 4 gram. So both of them are going to be added at a later stage at some point in the boil. And the yeast for now, just put aside, and we'll divide that into 2. We'll split the pack when we come to transfer this into the pinter, at a later stage. So for now, we're just hitting 70. So I'm going to flame off now. So there's no pressure, there's no panic. Cut the bag open, give us a decent corner to pour it out. Try and keep control to minimise spillage. Try and just distribute it evenly throughout your pot. I'll just pop that in the bin. Okay, I'll give that a little stir to distribute it, make sure that it's all soaked up. Of course, we've got 8 litres of water now in this pot, and the 1 litre in the kettle ready for rinsing when this is done. So I use the long spoon to just gently stir it in, distribute it throughout the pot, make sure that there's no clumps, and no just sort of like thick dry clumps that have stuck together. Smells really nice. So just using your common sense, mix that in, make sure there's no clumps. Now what we're looking for now, this is easy as pie really. We're looking for a target temperature of 65 degrees C. So really that's what we want to try and maintain as close to that temperature for the next hour. So now that the grains have gone in, I'll set my timer for 1 hour. And basically I'll just keep my eye on this, every probably 5 or 10 minutes. I'll keep a quick check on it, and as the temperature drops below 65, I'll just put the flame back on, quickly bring it back up to temperature, maybe go a couple over to 67 or something to buy you a bit of time, and then I'll turn the flame back off and let it sort of like sit and soak. So that's the target temperature. It's going to vary to either side of 65, 65, 66. It's going to vary up and down slightly. That's not a problem at all. Try and keep it within sort of like 5 degrees C if you can. But it's as simple as that now. For the next hour, there's no heavy lifting. It's just literally just keeping an eye on it, making sure that the temperature is maintained around 65. Give it a stir now and again if you want, get involved, give it a stir, make sure it's sort of like, well mixed in the pan and not clumping up. And that's it, get through the hour, and then we'll move on to the boil. So for now, really, that instruction is so simple. I'll camera down, I'll get this done for the hour, and I'll switch back on when we're ready to go into the boil, give you the next instructions. So catch you in a flash.
1 hour later.
So there we have it. 1 hour later, Because of the bigger 15 litre pot, I only actually had to reheat the water once, which was great. It held the temperature really well. Stirred it probably, half a dozen times just to kind of like keep involved, if you like. So what we're ready to do now is go into the oil. And before we do that, of course, we're going to get rid of the bag. Now, to drain this off, I'm just going to use a everyday kitchen colander. Now this, unfortunately, the handles are not quite big enough to sit on top of the pot. So what I tend to do is use a piece of wood to sort of like leverage the difference, if you like. So I'll show you that in a minute. But the way I'll go about this then, moving on to the next step. I'll take the thermometer off. Get rid of all the pegs. Now I'll just scrunch the bag together so that I can hold it in one go at the top. Like this. Now, so how I'm going to try and do this, it's a little bit tricky because I'm going to have to use this piece of wood as well. But I'm just going to lift the whole grain bag up. Pop my colander in there. Just gently rest the bag back down. I like doing it over a bigger pan. I don't like doing it over a separate pan because I always find that it spills, to be honest. And this is super sticky now. Yeah, I mean, this little bit, to be honest, we would be better with a bigger colander. This is the only part really that I've not modified. Going to the bigger pan has made it so much easier, but this pan is not really quite big enough. This colander ideally could do with being a little bit bigger so that the handles were over the edge, but I think we can work with it. You see, when I put this in a big saucepan, I previously, obviously I've tried this before, taking it out of the main pot, putting it on a big saucepan, you can see that it doesn't flow through the holes of the colander effectively because the actual bag and the grains push against the side of the colander and actually kind of like close off the holes. So what you actually find is that most of it is running over the top. Whilst it is seeping out the sides, it's really it's flowing over the top. So if you get yourself a big saucepan, it is quite easy to have spillage and a right old sticky mess. So that's why I personally try and do it over the big pan itself. I think you've got a better chance. This wood, it's a bit precarious, but to be honest, last time I pushed the wood further in, if I just get it balancing on the edge of the handle, it gives a little bit of extra space for the liquid to run off. So I think we're going to be okay with this. It's just a case of being a little bit vigilant with how we do it. I'll just keep squeezing it, twisting it. That's how I like to do it. I like to just get the top myself, scrunch it into a ball, and the way I sort of like try and drain it off is to just squeeze it. It's drained fairly well now. I've left it for a couple of minutes. What I'm going to do is proceed to put the water in. You can see there that I've opened the bag just sufficient, to leave a patch there that I can just circulate this water through. And then this clean water, a bit at a time, I'll just keep topping it up, let it drain off, let that water flush through, drain out the majority of that. I'll flick the bag up, drain and squeeze it for another 5 minutes, and then that'll be the job done, and we'll move on to the next phase. So I've flushed it through with my 1 litre of clean water, and I've twisted this now just to the point where I'm satisfied that I've drained off the majority of the wort that's in the grain, you know, and I'm comfortable to, there's enough water what we're working with here, you know, that 9 litres in total. So we don't need to, you know, drain this dry. Quite a lot of water will be retained in this unavoidably, but we don't really want to squeeze. We don't really want all that in the brew, so that's fine. You know, we've twisted it, we've drained it through. It's where we're at now, so we can remove this. Now this wort, you will find, if you've never dealt with this before, at this stage is super sticky, you know, so be careful of spilling it on the sides, even getting it on your hands. It's super sticky. So what we're going to do now is, we've got the wort in the pan. We're going to put the flame back on, start heating it back up. We don't need the thermometer now because we're going to be driving it to boiling point. So I'll put the camera off for a minute, get the heat on, get it boiled up, and when it comes to the boil, I'll pop the camera back on and then I'll show you what we're doing with the hops. So I'll see you in 2 minutes. Okay, this is coming to the boil now. Be very cautious and have a lot of vigilance when you're bringing this to the boil, because the wort has a tendency to boil like milk. So it can all of a sudden easy foam up and boil up and try and overflow the pot or the pan. So watch this very vigilantly, and as you start to see the foam break and clear, then you know you're coming to the boil there, and you've got to be very, very cautious to adjust your gas accordingly so that you've got a nice rolling boil. You know, it's more than a simmer, you know, it's a moderate to rolling boil, but of course you don't want the risk that it's going to overflow, that it's going to boil over, sorry. So as soon as you get that rolling boil, you'll see the break, the foam will separate, and you can see the clarity of the wort. Then set your timer for 30 minutes. And at this point, we're going to add the 7-gram batch of hops as well. Just sprinkle them in. I'm going to give this a little stir, having put them hops in, but to be honest, the actual boil itself, the vigorous movement of the boil breaks down those hops, no problem at all. So, you know, we don't need to continue stirring this. We just need to get it at the boil and let it run for its 30 minutes. So I will let this chug away for 30 minutes, and in 30 minutes time I will come back, fire up the camera again. When the 30 minutes is up, that's when we're going to put the second batch, the 4-gram batch of hops in, and then we'll go about transferring it to the sink to cool it down, which will be the next step. So I'll see you in 30 minutes. Okay, 30 minutes on the boil, and here we are. The timer's just buzzed, so I'm going to turn the flame off. Of course, now we've got our final hop addition. Now, just give you a little bit of an explanation of why these hops go in at different stages in the boil. We're on the boil for 30 minutes. What the hops that you put in early on in the boil, they will contribute. They will boil longer, of course, break down, and they will contribute towards the bitterness in your beer. So always be quite cautious if you're modifying a recipe, an existing recipe. Always be quite cautious if you put in extra hops early on in the boil, because it can quite significantly change the bitterness of your beer. The hops that are put on later on in the boil, like this 4-gram batch that I'm about to put in now, these are geared towards more just the flavour and the aroma. And of course, dry hops, which will be added much later on in the brew at sort of like much lower temperatures, again, that's all about the hoppy flavour and aroma, and that's not going to contribute towards bitterness really at all. So the flame's off, the 30 minutes boil is up. I'm going to just scatter these the final 4 grams of hops in there. I'm going to give it a quick boost with half a teaspoon of yeast nutrient. You know, like I've said before, I like to just give it half a teaspoon. Apart from a pint of brews, I put half a teaspoon in the extract kits, generally speaking, and the all grain kits, just to give it a nice little extra boost there to make sure that the fermentation goes well. So I'll give this a final stir. Now, of course, just to point out the obvious, the reason why we've not been worried about sanitization is because the temperatures that we knew we were going to hit here, boiling point for 30 minutes, is going to kill anything. So sanitization is not an issue at this point. You know, I've mentioned it before, but the sanitization side of things only becomes an issue when we cool this down. When it's down to room temperature, then it becomes a breeding ground for the bacteria, the microorganisms, if you like, as well. And so at that point, you know, if we put a thermometer in or touch the wort, we will be sterilising anything that we touch it with, or the spoon. But we won't actually be stirring this again anyway, because I like to, when it's cooled down, I like to leave any sediment that forms in the bottom of this. I like to leave probably about a litre of water still in this. I'll show you it, you know, when we finalise, but you know, it's just to keep that sediment in here, because there'll be quite excessive sediment in the bottom of this once we've cooled it down, and there's just no point in transferring that into your pinter and having all that flushed down into your dock. So we'll do the best we can on transfer to minimise the sediment that we pass over. But anyway, back to the stage where we're at. Just give this a quick stir so I know that them hops are well mixed in, and more to the point, it's just really the yeast nutrients now that I want to make sure is thoroughly dissolved, but it won't take much. It won't take much at that temperature. So, you know, we're ready now for the cooling process. Now, you know, I've said this before, I don't have any fancy equipment to cool these down. I like to just transfer over to my sink. I've got a sink sitting there with half full of cold water. So I'm going to pop this over into my sink, into the cold water. There you go. Now I'm going to leave that sit in the cold water. My plan of attack on this, cooling this down, it's difficult. You know, you've got 8 litres of boiling wort there, and it's not easy to cool it down quickly. So I tend to take a more relaxed approach, to be honest. And what I will do is I'll keep a check on it, and probably every hour for the next 3 hours, the cold water that's in that sink, of course, will heat up pretty quick. So every hour, I'll take the pot back out the sink, put it on the side, and put a new batch of cold water in the sink, and then pop the saucer back in. I'll do that probably 3 or 4 times maximum. And at that point, when the temperature's dropped, you know, sufficiently that it's coming down to normalish temperatures, it's not super hot. I tend to then just, before I go bed at night, I just put the final batch of fresh cold water in there, and I will sit it in that cold water, and I'll go to bed and forget about it. I'll just leave it overnight, let it cool down at its own pace, and then I know that tomorrow morning when I wake up, it's going to be at room temperature, ready to transfer to the pinter, no problems at all, and pitch my yeast. So it's an easy finish. You know, the hard work has been done here. So for today, you know, that's the conclusion. Of course, on the video, I'll pick it up straight away. You'll see this, what happens tomorrow morning, the transfer straight away. But hopefully you've seen really that it's really quite a simple process. You know, I mean, it's shockingly simple. To be honest, it's no more difficult. You might even consider it a little bit easier than knocking up an extract kit. Certainly an extract kit, if you're going through the process of splitting a 40-pint extract kit down to 4 separate ones, I would say that process of going through that and then doing one of the kits is more of a headache than doing an all grain kit, which, you know, is really quite shocking, really quite surprising. So the all grain kits, you know, they're not difficult. They're not difficult to do. The hour that it's on the mash and the 30 minutes on the boil you're not really doing anything, to be honest. It's time consuming because you've got to keep an eye on it, but it's not like you're doing anything difficult. So it's an enjoyable process, and the results of these all grain kits should be 9 out of 10 times, if you get it right, it's going to be fantastic, a level above. So it's an interesting thing to experiment with. So that's it for today. I'll wrap it up, and I'll see you, well, in a couple of seconds on the video, but for me that'll be tomorrow. So I'll catch you in a bit. Okay, I'm back sooner than expected. I've given it about probably 3 or 4 hours. Changed the cold water probably only once an hour, and last time I checked it, it was pretty much down to room temperature and ready to go. So I thought, well, it's still early enough that I'll fire the camera up, finish off the job today, make it simple for myself. So what I'm going to do now is just get the Pinter. This is Pinter now, of course, has been sanitized. It's ready to go. I'll pop it in the sink. I've got a little funnel over there, you'll see in a minute, which is just sitting in the sanitizer, which I'll use to guide pouring in the wort into the Pinter. So I'll get that set up, flick the camera around so you can see a little bit better, and just show you the final pour and the transition from the pot into the Pinter. Okay, here we go. This is the funnel that I use. It's basically one that comes with a little mesh fine grade filter with it. I'm just going to give that a little shake. I'll pop it over here so it can just drain off a bit. It's no rinse sanitizer, of course, so it's not something that I'm going to be worrying about, these suds, but I like to sort of like shake off whatever excess I can. That pops onto the actual funnel. I'll pop it in there. Now, like I briefly mentioned earlier, I'll be looking to pour not all of this in. There should be, if we've timed it right, excess wort in here now, probably by about a litre, half a litre hopefully, so that the main portion of sediment that is settled in here as this is cooled down will keep this back in the pot, and that will just save us transferring that sediment into the Pinter and, if you like, congesting the docking station. So I'll go ahead for the pour. Now, of course, I'll probably need to stop and check what level we're at here. Normally with the Pinter, of course, you fill to the fill line with water, and then you put your fresh press on top before you mix it. The fresh press on average will be about 1 litre. So what we're looking to do here is go probably half an inch over the fill line, because that would be equivalent to the water plus fresh press. So that's the sort of like volume that we'll be looking for here. So I'll give it a shot. I'll start pouring this in. What I'll do is I'll keep pouring this in, working it through the filter until I get to the fill line, and then I'll pop the camera back on. Don't want to bore the life out of you watching this slowly filter through. As I say, really, you could chance this without filtering it at this stage, but I just think that some of this thicker sediment, what's in the bottom of here, is best kept out of the Pinter. Okay, there you have it. I have put I've filtered the rest of the actual liquid in. I've put the pot out the way. The water volume worked out fine in the end. It was exactly what I was looking for. There's probably, I don't know, half an inch left in the pot, if that, and that meant that the worst of the sediment could be kept back. The rest has been filled in here to just over the fill line. I basically just flipped it over. I've shaked it up to give the aeration, oxygenation, ready for pitching the yeast. I've took a little sample there because I'll take a hydro reading, and I'll take a refractor reading as well. And then I'll let you know the ABV when we come to taste testing. And then I'll put the docking station on and flicked it up, and this is now ready to go. So, it's been a pretty easy ride today, to be honest. Everything's gone fairly smooth. You've seen my method now, and that's pretty much the method I stick to with every all grain kit that I put through the Pinter 3. You know, there's numerous recipes out there that you can look out for. You can use recipe books for 40-pint kits and scale them down. You know, check out the malt miller, see what recipes that they have online, or just Google and see. I'm sure there's loads of small batch recipes out there. But, you know, once you know a basic method that you can stick to, you can just chop and change the weights and the measurements of any recipe and adapt it to be suitable for the pint of 3. So that's it for today. You know, I hope you enjoyed it. It was pretty easy going, to be honest. And look out for the taste test on this. If it turns out any good, then I will post the actual recipe that I used, just so you can see the measurements. And if you want to go and copy it, then that's fine. And we'll actually see. You know, we'll rate it in the usual fashion, proper taste test, see if it's any good, see what we think. And overall, you know, we'll make an assessment. Is the all grain a path that is kind of like interesting to us, or is it just not worth the while? Are you better off sticking with extract kits, the mangrove jacks, the Pinter fresh presses, and all that? Is it better off? Is it easier to just stick with them? You know, you've seen the sort of detail today. A lot of dirty dishes. You know, is it worth it? Let's see. You know, let's see when it comes to the taste test. So that's it for today. I will catch you next time. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed your video today. If you'd like to join our Pinter community, like and subscribe and leave any comments below. Cheers.